Good morning to all our listeners. You have no idea the pain I have suffered to bring you this magnificent, glittering podcast. I have been in the depths of hell, and if it wasn't for Pat McGart, I'd still be in hell. Are you in hell, Pat, or are you in heaven over there?
Well, excuse me, Dr. Collins, it's a fine morning here. The sun's out, well, it's a very weak sun, but it's shining and all the
Uh,
rest of it. Hey,
yeah,
Jude,
actually,
here, I'm going to throw this one at you. Yeah, there's a considerable amount of controversy in the Republic at the minute. Michael O'Leary, the chief executive of Ryanair, he
yeah,
was down at something on his constituency, down about Kildare, wherever it was, and
uh-huh.
he's had a real snap at teachers. He said there's too many
I
teachers in the Dáil
saw
and
that.
whatever. And he said that he wouldn't be electing teachers. Basically, it was a snide comment. But anyway, it's rebounded big time. It's got a lot of traction in the Republic. And I think Fine Gael are going out of their way to sort of disassociate themselves from it and so on. But do you think a remark like that should be taken in the wider context? Or do you think the fact that it was a sort of a snide comment that we should take it seriously?
Well, it was a snide comment. It was a sincere comment too. He would regard most teachers as being, not really people who could do stuff. And I would also say that's a general feeling in society. If you were talking about doctors or you're talking about lawyers or whatever, nobody would say, oh, they're not good at getting stuff done. But once
Mm.
it's teachers, you can say anything you like. And the fact is, for a profession, they're held in low esteem, and you can see it in the bloody pay that they get. Um,
Yeah.
so Michael O'Leary wasn't saying anything different from what most people believe, but the sight of him saying it, and not everybody loves O'Leary, and
Mm.
then Fine Gael sort of sniggering and laughing and
Yeah.
clapping. I
Yeah.
hope that sticks. What do you think? Do you think that'll make an impact with the voters? Do you think will there be many
Sure, you know
teachers
something.
will
At
say,
the start, I was a friend of mine who sent it to me. I didn't see it at all on Saturday. He says, and by the way, he is a Fun Gaeler as far as I know. Well, his
uh,
family certainly were.
yeah,
And what do you call it? He said, Pat, he says, I find this absolutely offensive. He says, basically, he said, if he's, he said, if he said it about black people, he says it would be, but he says, it's all right, you say it about teachers, but he said, like, okay, he says, I know that's an exaggeration. But here's the thing, Jude. In my family, I have teachers every which way I look. Like I have a son a teacher, I have nephews teachers. My wife has two sisters teachers. I can keep going right, left, and centre. I thought it was a wee bit offensive. I really genuinely, and I know the other part of me says, okay, don't get on too high a horse about the whole thing. Thinking to myself, or at the time I saw it, and there was an arrogance there, and it was dismissal. Now, the other side of the story is, I remember the time Andy Kenny was Tisha, and he was a former teacher, and I easily thought he was one of the worst Tisha ever, and so on. So I see, as usual, know that people like me. Apparently, I'm Libra, and I'm always looking for a balance. And there's a part of
ah,
my brain that sort of
that's
says that
interesting. That's
maybe
interesting.
O'Leary's got a point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'd be reluctant to say. Anyway, let's put it like this. It's a funny thing to take an entire profession and say
Yeah,
those people are no good at doing such and such. I mean, that's
no,
that. You might as well.
that's
This is
bollocks.
the thing you get
Mm.
with people who say, politicians, they're all the same. What a stupid thing
Mm.
to say. You wouldn't say that about bin lorry men or, farmers or.
By the way, Jude, not all, is this crap that businessmen make great politicians? Do they hell? A lot of them are the most useless share of bollocks as you could ever meet. These generalizations are never ever accurate.
Yeah. Simon Harris, you see, was keen to get O'Leary there so he could say, look at us, Fine Gael, we're the business party, and look at the stars we have. The things we've done have made it possible for Michael O'Leary and Ryanair to
Mm.
flourish. That's what he wants, first of all. Secondly, he's sort of nervous about the fact that O'Leary has sneered at teachers. So he's trying to strike, maybe he was born a Libra too. He's trying to strike this balance between, on the one hand, keeping the business sector who will admire O'Leary on board, and at the same time, not having the teachers tell him to stuff it up his
But
jersey.
no, no, no. Another thing, Jude. You know, the old landlords used to tell the peasants how to vote. There was smack of O'Leary saying, "Hey, if you vote Fine Gael, make sure you vote Fianna Fáil, and then vice versa, and transfer and all the rest. It
Mm.
almost as if he was saying, "Look, I'm a businessman. I'm very successful, and I know what to do,
Yeah.
and keep those, riff-raff lefties out of government." So it's a real smack of arrogance. The old landlord telling the peasants, this is what's good for you because it's good for me.
Aye. And it's another way of saying, look at how successful I am. And how come you
Yeah,
guys aren't successful? Oh, well, that's because you're incompetent, really, when
yeah,
all's
yeah,
said
yeah,
and done. Uh,
yeah,
I
yeah,
hope, certainly it's been the first item since the general election was called that has,
yeah,
put somebody in the back foot. And I am delighted to see it. May many more of
yeah.
them. Did you happen to see Sunday Politics on RT
I
yesterday?
saw a bit of it last night. I was sitting watching a wee bit of it. Yeah,
What did you
didn't
think?
see it all now.
What did you
No,
think?
what? No, what does they say? Housing, uh, immigration, and what was the other one? Health are the three big
Yeah.
ticket items. And Jude, let's be honest, the coalition government hasn't covered themselves in glory in any of those. I think we're building less houses this year than we did last year. The health service is still an absolute basket case. And and the cost of living and so on is way sky high. Dude, Jesus, the cost. Like I went down yesterday, Dude. A thing of gas, a cylinder of gas used to cost €25. I got one yesterday. I think it was 30 sterling. Geez, dude, that's a hell of a switch round
Mhm.
But anyway, that's just it, dude. There's so many things now. Everybody thinks it's an open and shut case for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gaels, as do I. But someone should. In 3 weeks' time, I would love to know. Will there be a swing round? No, not the way the polls have got things wrong in America. I wonder if they've got things wrong here.
That's what the presenter Anya, whatever her name is,
Yeah,
said,
Anya
about
Lawler.
polls. She asked somebody at the end about polls. What
Yeah,
do you
he was
think?
a professor GCD.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I think she was also talking to the guy who does the sort of political reports in RT, a guy,
Michael
seemed to be
Hannah.
young with
Yeah,
curly hair. And he was
yeah,
saying that in 2020, what was the state of the polls then? Opinion polls.
yeah,
It had
yeah,
Sinn Féin at something like 17 or 18. It had Fianna Fáil at 20, I think, and Fine
yeah,
Gael up in the 30s. Well,
yeah, yeah.
that's not how that ended. It ended
That's
radically
not yeah,
different.
yeah, yeah,
Sinn Féin did
yeah,
terrifically well. I mean, and nobody saw it coming. Same thing
yeah,
if you think about it with the polls in America. Uh,
yeah,
they said, "Oh, it's going to be so tight; it'll take days and maybe weeks even before we can." Bang! The polls were
yeah,
proved,
yeah.
totally wrong. So I would take heart if I was Sinn Féin and say, well, what matters, as somebody says, is the only poll that is important, and that's the one that you have the day of the election.
Absolutely. Actually, I know I don't expect to see any major upsets, in fairness, but I just, there's this. I did. Have you ever social media sometimes as a good barometer of what's going on?
Hmm.
Not certain people are as happy as the government parties think they are. Dude, I repeat and I repeat and I repeat. See, you don't judge a society from the top down, but from the bottom up. Big
Hmm.
corporations making big profits, government having huge, all the rest of it. A woman can't afford to buy new shoes for her child going to school, or she's struggling to put food on the table. It's
Yeah.
where the real problems are.
Okay.
I think there
Thank
might be
you.
a lot more of those in the Republic of Ireland than is generally acknowledged.
Yeah. You mentioned social media. I want to ask you about social media and about that thing on mainstream media, i.e. RT and
Yeah,
Sunday. The four parties are
yeah,
represented: Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Social Democrats, and Sinn Féin. What did you
yeah.
think? Where would you rank them in terms of their presentation of their case?
Well, the Sinn Féin seem to have a policy and everything. Whether you agree with that policy and everything, they seem to be best prepared. He, but here's the other side of the story. Let's localize it. On Friday evening, the Dáil was only dissolved on Friday. I noticed Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil had out their posters right away. They had them up in the afternoon, so it's going to be very interesting. But I don't know. I think the government parties have been, they have had a budget there where they give everybody something for everybody in the
Yeah,
audience type
yeah.
thing. They
Splashing the
have
cash.
massive big surpluses. They're all the rest. Jude, it should be a sort of a slam dunk for them. But
Hmm.
something tells me it mightn't be as simple as they think it is. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I want to go back to that social media thing then. We've talked for a moment about the mainstream. I thought that the presentation and the look of the different people, to be honest, again, maybe I'm leaning one way rather than another, but I thought Sinn Féin and the Social Democrats, the woman from the Social Democrats, were
yeah,
both very effective. Whereas the guy from Fianna Fáil, I thought he was pretty bad actually.
yeah.
And I
Jack Chambers,
think,
if I remember correctly.
and what is
Yeah.
that woman's name? Is it Jennifer something, the Fine Gael woman?
Jennifer O'Connell. I think it's she from Fun Gael.
I thought she struggled to some extent. To be
Yeah,
honest, again, this has got to do with appearance. I'll probably be lynched for this, but she looks a very sort of scary type of woman. Uh,
yeah.
and she didn't get out her stuff as clearly. I mean, the advantage that Cullinan had, the Sinn Féin guy, was that he had a booklet of some kind with the facts and figures and
Yeah,
that's
Sinn
always
Féin have got their
helpful.
policies all in a row, and they've got a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
I don't know whether the rest. No, there's no point. I didn't see enough of the program to make an informed
Mm,
judgment, so I'm not
mm,
going to bullshit and say.
yeah.
But what I did see is I think Sinn Féin on this occasion. Now they have all their policies, particularly the housing policy. They have a
Yeah.
massive big document in that,
Hmm.
and they have heard Piers Doherty on Saturday saying they've costed all their program, etc.,
Yeah.
etc.,
Yeah.
etc. So, but whether that makes any difference to it, I don't know.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. When I watched that thing on RTE, I thought if we have another five, six, seven, eight of those, like there's a leaders' debate tonight.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you know, if you had a party or parties coming out of that looking good, I think
yeah,
I could overturn any amount of opinion polls. Let me
yeah.
come, let me
That's
come,
true.
let me come to the other one. You said social media, Pat. I don't quite understand social media. Are you talking about
Mm.
Facebook and Twitter or what?
Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. Yeah, you see, a lot of stuff. Let's be honest, right? Which brings me on to another one. But well, the mainstream media plays the game for the establishment.
Yeah.
Social media sometimes gets under the skin and starts doing it different. Jude, let me bring you on because you've just brought on. I think it was Friday. The Dutch government and the Israeli government came out and said this that the Maccabi Tel Aviv football fans who were in Amsterdam for a match against Ajax on Thursday night had been brutally attacked in an anti-Semitism, etc., etc.,
You
etc., and
nearly
so
said
on.
antiseptic there.
I was going to septic exactly, and I think is what I did say. But, and it was and so on and so on. But anyway, on Friday, I was watching RTE, and the report started with saying I thought it was rather it said the trouble was initiated by Maccabi Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters. Then on Saturday, I was watching social media, and there was a report from Sky News where it clearly had raw footage of what was going on, and it basically said that first of all, the Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters were going through Amsterdam. They climbed up and attacked private property, pulled a Palestinian flag off a building of a house. They attacked a taxi where somebody had a Palestinian flag. During the match itself, there was a minute's silence for the Spanish flood victims. They sneered and disrespected that, and they
In what
chanted.
way? In what way did they
They,
chant?
they chanted during the whole minute's silence. Apparently, Judd, I didn't realize the time. Apparently, the Spanish government are refusing to send Israel any arms, and so
Hmm.
that's what that was about. But
Did
they
they
also
chant?
chanted as
Can you say what they chanted?
not at the minute, but apparently on the way to the ground, they chanted "fuck the Arabs," and then they also sang "Where there are no schools in Gaza because there are no children." Apparently, this is all on video. So these poor and but nobody gets me. The narrative of the Dutch PM, of raw video disputes and or almost refutes what he said on. What was the motivation? I think, by the way, the Dutch government have got very right wing. So it was
Hmm.
all it was like these poor Maccabee fans. Apparently, Jude, they are seriously nasty individuals. They're called ultras. They're racist and bigots.
Well, I would have said that two things. One, if you are serious about your opinion on Gaza, if you see it as an effort to inflict a genocide on a people, then there's no way that the Tel Aviv, whatever they're called, the Maccabees, should have
Uh,
been invited to play, and the Dutch team should have refused to play with them. I think you have to express your opinion openly using whatever platform you have available. The second thing is, even, all right, granted that they were given the invitation to play, isn't it absolutely ludicrous that you have the Dutch Prime Minister on TV saying, "Oh, we have been shamed. The Netherlands have been
yeah,
shamed by
yeah,
these people that did this," and then the Dutch Prime Minister never came out and said, "Well, if, some of the Maccabee people were roughed
behavior.
up." None of them, as far as we know, had a rocket land on them. None of them, as far
Uh,
as we know, were buried under rubble. None of them, as far
yeah,
as we know, their wives and children were killed. Uh,
yeah,
to make a fuss about, I mean, I know it's a bad thing, but to make a fuss about what was, in effect, a football riot for a few minutes or a few hours, and to ignore the most appalling carnage. I can't remember a worse time in terms of carnage in a
yeah.
war. I just, words fail me. Words fail me. What the hell has
But
happened to
no, you
people?
know what really got to me is, and I started thinking about it, was the fact that we were deliberately lied to by a prime minister for a narrative that isn't true. Now, I'm not saying that the what happened afterwards wasn't whatever,
Uh,
but the instigators, the catalysts, the people who did the stuff at the start, that Jude, what is your man said that for every action there's an equal reaction and
yeah,
whatever. Well, if you go along and pull down Palestinian flags in a sort of an area of Amsterdam where there's a lot of Moroccans and all the rest of it, and so on, and chant abuse and so on, like you're going to get a reaction. And
yeah,
here's the thing: say the Maccabee fans had arrived with their hands in their pockets, went to the game, enjoyed their football, and left. Would any of this have happened?
no, I agree. I totally agree. It's the old thing, Pat. Remember we talk about selective outrage. Uh,
Yeah,
that's a selective presenting of events. The media, the mainstream media, have a habit of doing that kind of thing. They certainly did
yeah,
it during the troubles here. It's, you package
yeah,
it as a nice, simple story. A bunch of football fans from Israel were attacked by right wing
yeah.
or left wing or whatever Dutch people. And that's, as you say, that's so misleading when you don't know all the other stuff.
Jude, by the way, the girl, I don't know her name, the female reporter on Sky did
Yeah,
a very, very good report. Apparently, that report was subsequently deleted. It's not even on their website now. So,
really.
Jude, you know, at whose request or bequest was that removed?
Well, why did the BBC report this? I wonder.
No, no, I can't. There's no point in me saying what they did or didn't because I don't
Hmm.
know. But
Yeah,
a
I
friend
just
of
would have
mine
been
is actually,
interested to see would
well,
they
a
have
friend of
been.
mine, it says that both the BBC and Sky sort of went down the same route. But the raw video footage, which is now up on social media,
Mhm.
totally debunks the official version.
Yeah.
Jude, I think the Israeli lobby has got the BBC and it's got Sky. I really genuinely do because I
Mhm.
think some of the things that are going on are unbelievable. Dude, this sort of balance the BBC. Dude, there's only one people. Every night there's 40 and 50 dead between Lebanon and Israel. There's nobody in Israel dying. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean,
They
it's
continually
balance.
talk about the war in Gaza. The war in
Wait a
Gaza.
minute.
I've never seen a war like that in my life. Anyway, what else do we want to talk about today?
By the way, we didn't, because of technical difficulties, we didn't get right in on Friday.
Technical
Right,
difficulties and emotional breakdown in my case,
emotional
sobbing.
breakdown. But anyway, last week our friend Donald Trump got himself elected as president of the United States. Now there's two things. Number one was supposed to be a very tight race, and et cetera, but he won
Yeah.
by a country mile. But the other thing, I think it's emerged that a considerable number, now not massive, but considerable number of black people and Latinos, particularly men, voted for Donald Trump. And you sort of go, the party of the working class some years back was the Democratic Party. That was all the Irish voted for him, and so on. So what's happened? You know, that a black man and a Latino can see their way to vote for a white, basically racist billionaire rather than a black woman who surely should been have more. They should have had more in common with.
That's right. I agree with you completely. I don't know what the reason is. There was an article in today's Irish Times. Now, and it was about Enoch Burke. You know that guy
Yeah,
that's been
yeah.
refusing court orders and will not stay away from the
Yeah,
school he's employed.
he's been held in jail for about 400 days for doing
Ah,
very
more than
little wrong.
400 days. Unbelievable. I mean, I
Yeah,
mean, he's an educated guy. In fact, they're very smart. They were home educated, I think. But
yeah.
uh, this article made the point that I think it was a guy, and I think this is something like Man Week or something like that. But he said, I'd like to give him a hug because
Yeah.
he says the men at the moment in the world are sort of they're lost. They feel that they're sort of on the back foot and nobody's listening to them. They have the difficulty that they can't express their emotions freely. Uh, she said the writer in the Irish Times said if that had been a woman who had spent 400 days in prison for going to a school, would that have been the same thing? Would people have seen the same light? I have a suspicion they wouldn't have. I think. Do you think? Would you?
Can you imagine if there's some wee girl who's got a principal and she says and spends 400 days in jail for her principal? Well,
Mm,
you agree or disagree with the principles and irrelevant. This Enoch Burke is non-violent.
mm, mm,
He says he's been asked to recognize something that is against his religious
mm,
beliefs, etc.
mhm.
So now I don't agree directly with him, but I agree
Yeah.
with someone. There's a part of me that says I admire his principles.
Oh, I definitely admire him. I admire him. I haven't a clue what his principles are, and like you, I think I probably would object to them strongly. Not his principles, but his whole world view.
Viewpoints.
But certainly, I certainly admire him for. I mean, he really is. He's the stuff of I don't know what you call him. I think of Thomas More. Do you remember Thomas More?
Thomas More. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Henry
A
VIII.
man for all season.
Aye, and hey, they were
Yeah,
begging him, don't do it. You don't have to do this. You can still, you'll be still Henry's favorite and so on. Don't. And he
yeah,
said, can't do. I got to stick to this. And he sticks to it, and I mean, he's executed at the end. But
yeah,
that quality of sort of unflinching adherence to your principles, there's not a lot
yeah.
of it about. Here's a question, finally, Pat, on that particular point. The article mentioned the fact they said that men in the world find it hard to speak their feelings. They find it difficult to talk about how they feel about stuff,
Hmm.
and women find it much easier. What do you think about that, Pat? Is that true?
Well, there's probably a truth in it. Like, I can speak reasonably freely about my feelings. I don't get too excited. But having said, Jude, the vast majority of suicides are young men
That's
by a
true.
mile.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. I think that, I mean, most of us would agree that one of the reasons for that is that they can't talk to people. They can't tell people how they're
yeah,
feeling because that's seen as a
yeah,
sign of weakness. If you say,
yeah.
I can't cope, that's okay for a woman because you say, well, she's probably crying, you try to look after her. But for a man to say, I can't cope and maybe break into tears, that's not allowed. We
No,
we
it's not
say
allowed.
stuff, we make out, we want people to express their feelings, including men. But when a man shows his feelings and starts to cry, women
Uh,
and men don't like it. They really don't.
no, Jude, it strikes me. There's a lot of things going on in the world today, but I was sitting watching a lot of not a lot, but some of the coverage of the outworking of the election. And the reason I brought that up was because it just strikes me as really odd that, and my dear Mrs. pointed out to me as well. She says, "Have you listened to?" She says some of the coverage. A lot of black people saying they were voting for Trump on the basis that he was looking out for the working class. He was the only one said that he would drop the tax on tips to workers. And he went around the Rust Belt states where he said he was he was going to look out for them, etc., etc. And apparently they said. As regards hers, they didn't know what the hell she stood for. Apparently, she was asked what would be the difference between her and Joe Biden in the early days of the campaign. She says no. Now,
Mm.
Jude, that if you're trailing in the polls and you tell the electorate, "Oh, there's going to be no difference between me and Joe Biden," like that struck me as beyond stupid.
Well, you see, she didn't want to alienate the Biden supporters. There must have been a lot of supporters of Biden in.
There's a way of saying no, no. Like I think Joe's done a great job, but look, I've got an agenda here, and
Uh,
I'm going to be radical. Yeah,
her,
there's a way of doing it.
but
Yeah,
I think her problem was she didn't lay out that agenda and exactly what
no,
it
she didn't,
was.
not at all.
It was very,
Nobody.
there's a lot of sort of vapid stuff about, we will make America. Essentially, she was given her version of we will make America great again.
But the other thing as well, Jude, I wonder as well. Uh, Bernie Sanders was very, very interesting. He said basically the Democratic Party have left the working people behind. The second thing, Jude, I wonder, there's a considerable number of Americans who are not happy with what's going on in Gaza, but Harris did nothing. So see the next Democrat, if he goes much more left wing, I wonder is there a ground there for him? Because what's the point in voting for the shadow when you can get the substance?
Mm.
I know, and if you're going right wing, you may as well go whole hog and go Trump.
But that's based on the assumption there was going to be more elections in the States.
Uh,
I mean, it's seriously like the way this guy talks. I mean, that's the
yeah,
guy. And he has surrounded, he really is like a medieval prince or king.
uh,
He's got all his favorites around him. He's got his family working for him. He's got the richest man in the world, who's
uh,
gonna say stuff for him. So he really does look as if he set up a court.
yeah. And
And
Jenny, he talked the last time about this barrier of only 2 terms. He said, I know you'll want me to stay on for longer, so we might have a look at that the last time." And he probably did only the things against him. He's what 78. Hey, Jude, finally, let's go just quickie.
okay.
On last week, there was a big get together of EU countries and leaders in Hungary. And if you watch the media coverage of it, Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, went out of his way to meet Macron. He met everybody, the chairman, Chancellor Schultz, and everybody else. But when Sir Keir Starmer arrived, didn't meet him. What do you read into that?
Well, maybe something to do with the fact that Keir Starmer is a bloody automaton with a bypass. You're one of saying
Yeah.
with an emotional
Well, I was
bypass.
wondering, is it the fact that Britain's no longer in the EU? That's just another sort of nobody gives a shit anymore, or is it because there's a legacy of the British Empire? But they actually showed it on social media about the fact that, and it showed him Orban meeting about 5, 7 leaders from all over the Dutch guy, the French guy, whatever. But along comes Starmer. Starmer gets out of the car and he's own. Nobody's there to meet him. I thought it was sort of just it was a minor incident, but telling in
Yeah.
its own way.
But it's not that surprising, really, if you stop to think about it. Britain, by pulling out, gave the EU a big headache for years trying to get them to bloody well come to some sort of terms. And they
Yeah,
bent over backwards for them. And meanwhile, the Brits are saying, oh, we want freedom and so on. So they wanted
yeah,
like freedom, but they wanted also to be able to trade whatever way they liked. So I think, to be honest, I think the EU has been very patient with the Brits. And
yeah.
Starmer isn't as obnoxious a figure as it would have been Boris, for example. But
Yeah.
at the same time, he's not the kind of guy you'd want to go off and have a beer with or even a cup of tea with.
No, no. I think what is it? He's had a personality bypass, and it's been
Um,
very successful. You know.
so, Pat, just finally, are you going to watch this debate on TV tonight? I think it's the
Oh
leaders of the
yes,
parties in the
definitely.
South.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
how do you think they'll perform? We've got Simon Harris, we've got Micheál Martin, Mary Lou McDonald, and I don't know they're going to bring in anybody else, the Labour woman or
Probably Ivana Bacik of the
yeah,
Labour Party, and I don't know of anybody else. You have to have more than, is it 5% of the voters? Something I can't remember.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it doesn't. But anyway, it's good. Well, what I guess at this stage, Micheál Martin's been round the block so often he could probably polish the whole thing the whole way around. Harris never impresses me, but people seem to like him. So it's me. It seems to be out of touch. Mary Lou. Mary Lou can blow hot and cold. See, when Mary Lou, she's like the cured egg type thing. When she's good, she's very good, but when she's not, she's not. So
Uh,
see when she's on form, she is top class.
hmm
She really is. But
hmm
I've seen her, struggle and sort of going, she's sort of lost her way. So I don't know. Bachik's a law lecturer, and she can be very, very analytical. She can be
hmm
very good.
hmm
So,
hmm
Jude, I think I'm repeating myself again, but I do think it's not as open and shut as everybody says
Oh
it is.
no, no.
Some of these things can make a big difference.
There are room for parties to change
Yeah,
nearly everything. One thing they won't change, unfortunately, is the number of independents.
yeah,
And the independents are sort of, well, I was going to say disgraceful, but it's understandable in that,
yeah,
you got a local bailiwick and they're really cheesed off with things, and they have to have
yeah.
somebody who's going to really fight for them. Forget about the rest of the state. Just vote, or not vote, but work for us. So I think
Mm.
that's what's come up, sort of discussed with the big parties, and we want a local man or woman that's really going to.
See in Donegal, just used a simple example. The Mecca issue here, Mecca,
Yeah,
where it's cracks in your buildings and houses and homes. That's a massive issue. I'd like I stood up right now. I can't tell you off the top of my head if they've got a candidate and if they have who it is. But I'll
uh,
put it like this: if they got their finger out and got out there, I am absolutely
yeah.
certain that
Mhm.
there's almost guaranteed a seat for them
Uh,
in Donegal.
Yeah, and you see, there's a similar sort of situations in different parts of the state. If you take, for example, the West, there was some guy on, or maybe it was Munster. A guy was on, and he was giving out about the way farmers have been treated.
Yeah,
Like, if you say I'm the champion of the farmers, especially the farmers in my constituency, I think you'd be
yeah,
on a good thing. Because you don't have to
absolutely.
bother, you simplify it. You don't all that other stuff. Let me look at
Yeah,
I'm looking after the farmers here. Anyway,
exactly.
Pat, so
On that note, Judge,
okay, you're going to stay up for it then. What time's it at?
absolutely. What's that?
What time's the debate?
I presume it's on after the 9 o'clock news.
Okay, that's good. Okay, Pat, thank you very much, and we hope, well,
Oh, that's it.
let's say a prayer for less technical problems the next time.
Okay, Jude. Good to see you.
Okay, I know
Yeah, bye, Jude.
you didn't say you were going to say a prayer.
I'm a very religious person, Jude. See you later, Jude.
Okay, all the best.